My name is Denise Eckert, and I'm the host of Calm Your Daily Stress podcast. And I love coming on here and sharing different techniques to help you lower the stress in your life. And today I've got Julia Blackwell, and she's a fascia release practitioner, educator, and creator of the Fascia Remedy. She has captivated a community of thousands with her unique bodywork, her fresh take on foam rolling, and her approach to discovering the root source of pain. Her unique combination of fascia release, postural alignment, and mindset magic has earned her the nickname the Pain Relief Wizard from her community of both professional athletes and everyday movers. Well, welcome, Julia.
Hi, Denise. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Wonderful. Now, what inspired you to do this type of work?
Oh, wow. Well, it's literally been a lifelong journey for me. I was born with severe nerve damage in my right arm. I was almost a 10-pound baby and I got stuck. So in the effort to pull me out, the doctor ended up stretching and tearing most of the nerves in my right shoulder. So I grew up going through, like so many of us, going through the standard Western medical system. I went to so many different doctors and therapists and practitioners, and really everyone I went to told me that there was nothing that they were really able to do for me. If anything, all of this continued tightness and tension and limited strength I had in my right arm, if anything, it was going to get worse. So I should prepare myself for that. And even though that is a pretty intense thing to tell someone so young and fragile, and that really still sometimes I find that lingering in my subconscious even to this day. I still did as many other types of modalities as I could think of, just anything I could think of to relieve this incessant tension, especially that I was feeling. And while I did try just about anything that Ohio in the 90s and early 2000s could give to me, really nothing seemed to make a lasting impact. Either it would help for a couple of hours or maybe a day before going back, or I really didn't feel much of a difference at all. So I had really started losing a lot of hope for this issue until in 2010, I moved out to Boulder, Colorado, and I happened to meet this lady who did a very unique type of fascia release work. And I had heard of fascia. It's hilarious. I have a degree in physiology, and they mentioned it briefly as so far as it's what connects ligaments to bones, and then they moved on. But I really had no understanding really of what this tissue was for or why working with it specifically could be so impactful. But it took me by complete surprise. It absolutely changed my life. I saw more results in the feel and the function of my arm in 3 months than an entire lifetime of doing all of these other modalities. So I was finally able to relieve tension. I started being able to fire muscles for the first time. And I also had a lot of different emotional releases that surprised me when I started doing this. And so much of that stress and trauma from my entire experience started being able to be released from my body. So I've come a long way. I started my practice pretty soon after that because I was obsessed. I couldn't believe that even though there's still a journey that I'm on to continue to help with my range of motion in this arm, I've never had anything before or since make such a profound impact on this issue for me, and I've seen it work wonders on hundreds and hundreds of people ever since.
Wow. I fell about 10 years ago and I ended up with nerve damage in both hands and both arms, all the way to the shoulders.
Man.
So I can feel your pain because it's nerve damage is something else. I mean, I felt like my arms were on fire for probably 8 years and didn't matter what I did. I used to have to sleep with my hands cramped because the moment they relaxed, it would go into spasms and everything else. So I feel for you being that young and having to deal with that level of pain. It's just, wow. I am so happy that you found relief. Now, with the modality that you're doing right now, can you explain how this works?
Yeah, so maybe I can start with explaining a little bit more about what fascia is, because
Absolutely.
again, I had really no idea the magnitude of what this was. So, one of my favorite analogies is that it's like a liquidy plastic wrap that wraps around every single thing in our body. So, every single muscle fiber, every single muscle and muscle group, and bone, tendon, ligament, organ, nerve, blood vessel, it all is wrapped in this intricate three-dimensional plastic wrap suit that we have on the inside. It's what organizes all of the water and material that we have. So, of course, it's going to help with our shape, our posture, our structure, and there's a lot of implications as far as mobility and pain goes. But something so fascinating about this system is it's almost like mycelium. Are you familiar with mycelium? It's like this little intricate network that is usually underneath a forest floor that connects mushrooms and trees and all of this life in one area. And it communicates underground in that network. And so it can send signals throughout the entire system. It's fascinating. Our fascia is like human body mycelium. It has its own network of communication that actually operates outside of the nervous system. And so research is discovering so many fascinating implications for how stress and trauma and things that happen to us are impacted and essentially logged by our fascia and then often transmitted into these physical ailments. It's really fascinating.
Okay.
So I know it's like I'm getting off track here.
That's
But so
okay.
we want to we want to talk to fascia in a specific way. So I found over the years between the work that started me on this journey to now is that one of the best ways is to do two things. So we want to compress fascia where it feels tight and tender and sore, and then slowly, intentionally, actively move our body in some way. So most treatments that we're familiar with are very passive. So we throw ice on an area, we put an electrical stem thing on it, or maybe we lay on a table. And God knows I've laid on hundreds of tables for treatment by experts where someone else is attempting to make change to your body for you. But when we ourselves actively start doing the movement as the right areas of our fascia are compressed, it's communicating with that network and relays to so many different parts of our body that it's actually safe to access certain ranges of motion again, that it can change and rehydrate, and a lot of things that are left very stagnant in the body from stress or lack of movement start to finally move and be released. So that combination of compressing an area and actively move. And I usually show people how to do it with tools that you probably already own, like foam rollers or massage balls. And that seems to make such an incredible difference as far as getting fascia to change and stay in that changed state.
Now, it sounds to me it's not a yoga practice, but something sort of similar. Now, is this something that you would implement on a daily basis to relieve that pain, or how does it work to put it into your schedule to, benefit from the pain relief?
So it really depends if you are experiencing a lot of stress, if you're experiencing a lot of pain, and it could be anything. It could be nerve related, it could be joint related, it could be muscle related. All of these things that we tend to think are a structure or a nerve problem are actually a fascia problem. So if you're experiencing any type of chronic or acute pain like that, I think releasing a little bit of fascia daily is going to expedite the process of you feeling better. But even if it's just a couple times a week, mostly I do 2 to 3 times a week just because I like it and it feels good to my body. But the great news is when you do this in a way that gets your fascia to change and stay there for a prolonged period of time, you're not fighting against the body where you have to be like, I have to do this every single day and beat my body into submission. It really is not like that at all. So a lot of times people find that they don't have to foam roll in this way as much as they're used to because they're doing it in a way that the body accepts and again, like keeps that change for longer periods of time.
I know this is really awkward because we're on a podcast, so it's basically audio only. But is there any way you could give us a short example of what a practice might entail?
Absolutely. So let's take a foam roller, for example. Most everyone sees it in the corner of their gym. Maybe they have one at home. And one of the first things people do is they'll get on the roller on their thighs in a plank type of position. So they're holding themselves up with their forearms, their thighs are on the roller, and normally they're just pulling their arms up and down and rolling up and down on those thigh muscles, right? That's how most people are taught to foam roll. And that still can be effective as a way to warm up your muscles if you're about to go for a workout, but it's not going to affect those deeper layers of fascia because fascia is not a sausage casing on the outside, right? It's that layer on layer weaving intricate system. So instead, find a spot on your thighs that feels really sore or tender and stay on that spot. So we stop moving, we stay on that spot. See if you can really let your body sink into that spot. And then I'm going to bend my heels straight back towards my glutes like a hamstring curl. So I bend the knees back and straighten them out, bend them back, straighten them out. And then I usually will keep them bent for a moment and then rock my heels from side to side. So now instead of going with the grain of the quad tissue, which goes from hip to knee, when you rock your heel side to side, we're now crossing perpendicular to the way those fascial fibers run. And we start stretching that tissue much more three-dimensionally than we would ever get from static stretching or simply rolling up and down on the roller. And you'll feel the difference. It might be a little intense at first. So if you need to throw a yoga mat over your roller or even a pillow, put a pillow between you and your roller to keep the intensity. Usually I say at a 7 at its max. And of course it can be lower, but you can totally do that. But the movement part is what's so important. So no matter what part of the body you're on, can you stay in that one spot and gently and intentionally move a nearby joint? That usually will get you a lot of success.
Now, what has your experience been with helping people reduce stress with this practice?
So inside of our fascial system, we have all of these free nerve endings and proprioceptors. And that's what I was essentially alluding to before, where these proprioceptors are constantly taking in data about both our external, but also our internal environment. And when we're really stressed and maybe we've experienced trauma in our life, well, it's usually not if, it's when, right? We've got varying degrees. But those proprioceptors are relaying to both the fascia and the brain that there's a threat detected in the body, and essentially it should brace for impact. And unfortunately, if we're chronically anxious or stressed, our body and our fascia will start to brace for an impact that never comes, right? And over time, fascia starts to become thick and more dense. And now we're talking about an aquarium that has the water turned off. Things become very stagnant. Things start to grow like little algae that grows on the side of the aquarium. That's the same thing happening here. So it often can lead to illness. I've seen it possibly contribute to autoimmune. There's a really fascinating article that even keeping your fascia healthy can prevent cancer from metastasizing. There's really fascinating research out there. But when we start going into releasing fascia in the way that I'm talking about, we have to face that sensation. Normally, when we're feeling a lot of sensation, it's a bad thing. And so we have to train ourselves to breathe through the diaphragm as we do it. We have to move slowly and intentionally. And I've seen over time with consistency that the resilience to stress and people that are doing this consistently goes way up because they're training themselves to be more relaxed while feeling sensation. And instead of freezing, instead of fighting whatever is happening, that typical nervous system response that we get when we're feeling unsafe, we get to quite literally move through that sensation, which can be very freeing for people. So I've seen lots of emotional releases happen in both my office and just hearing about it from clients who have done my online programs as well, where they might not even have any idea what it's from. Like, oh, wow, I just cried for 2 days after I did this, or I felt really angry for about an hour and then I felt great. It's like this ability to get these trapped emotions and this stuck energy out of the body. And so overall, I'm seeing people just become more resilient to stress and become more relaxed and comfortable in their body through this work.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, for someone listening, I understand you have a 7-day trial. Can you talk about that? Just for someone who wants to check it out and see if it works for them, how could they go about that?
Yeah, I've got an online video library called Roller Remedy because as I do the best I can, but it is hard at times to only use audio to explain what this is. So if you want to try this specific type of foam rolling for yourself, there's an entire library in there where you can just search for a tech, like any part of the body that you want to work on, or there's a lot of programs in there that focus on stress or that focus on a specific pain. So if you have plantar fasciitis, if you have headaches, if you have tendonitis, lower back pain, any of these things, there's certain programs that you can follow to help. And I do think after only 7 days, you would get an idea whether or not this is working for you because you usually do feel the difference of this style. So if you go to Movement by Julia, JULIA.com/podcast, I have a 7-day free trial. There's no auto charge at the end. It's just to see if this is a good fit for you and if it can help you with any of the issues that you might be dealing with.
I love that there's an online library because then it doesn't really matter where that pain is in that person's body. You'll have something to help them specifically. That's amazing. Okay, so wherever you're watching or reading this, I will have Julia's information. And so, Julia, we're going to wrap this up. Now, what are your final words of wisdom for today for the audience?
I would just say, as someone who spent over 20 years thinking that there was no solution out there and that everything I had tried was not working, that there is hope and things that you can do. You just don't know about them yet. Or maybe you're not releasing things where your body needs the release. Where we feel pain is rarely ever the problem. And I mean that both physically and metaphorically. And so being able to discover what really works for you or finding the right place for you makes all the difference. And so no matter how long you've been experiencing pain or experiencing stress, there's always a solution that you can find that is going to help your body and get you to where you need to go.
Now, with this online library, if someone wanted more one-on-one help with it to get started, do you offer that as well?
I do. I have one-on-one virtual consultations or sessions via Zoom. If someone needs a little bit more help finding their specific pattern or figuring out maybe what's the best way to do this type of work for them specifically, I have that option too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Julia. That was amazing information. And it's great because I've never heard of this type of practice before. So I love introducing new things to the audience. And yeah, especially dealing with this type of pain. It's very important just to keep, as you said, to keep trying different things until you find a solution because it's not fun living in pain at all. So thank you so much for your time today and leaving you a gentle reminder to slow down and enjoy life. And I'll see you in the next episode.